Okay, so House of the Dragon deals with a feuding family and the question of whether a woman can take over an esteemed family legacy. Sort of like Succession with dragons, but for this video, we're going back to where it all began. Throughout it, we're going to be breaking down the ultimate Chad, the top G of Westeros, Aegon the Conqueror. Don't turn off the video, it's going to get better, I promise. Now, his dream is mentioned a lot throughout the series, and for those not in the know, he travelled to Westeros because he saw a world for the taking. There were unlimited riches, and because he had dragons, he saw it as being something that he could easily conquer. Now, according to the secret passed from king to king, Aegon foresaw the end of the world of men, seemingly predicting the coming of the Night King. To combat this, he believed a Targaryen had to be sitting on the Iron Throne, which is why Aegon led his dragons and sisters in order to conquer Westeros. But who was Aegon, and how did he come to unify the different kingdoms of Westeros under one throne? Well, that's what we're going to be breaking down, and if you enjoy the video, please hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe for breakdowns like this every day. Without the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into Aegon the Conqueror. Now, Aegon was born in Dragonstone 20 BC. This was during the Century of Blood, which followed the Doom of Valyria. You might have heard the terms BC and AC bandied about our House of the Dragons breakdowns, and the latter stands for after Conquest, whereas BC means before. The book Fire and Blood opens by detailing the dates of this, and truthfully, we don't know the exact specific time that AC began, as the conquest wasn't done in a day. However, it gives us a rough time as to when Aegon arrived and changed Westeros. The Targaryen lords had fled to Dragonstone prior to the Doom of Valyria, after Daenerys Targaryen predicted that the greatest kingdom man had ever known, or will ever know, would be blown up. So the idea of predicting the future is not solely isolated to Aegon. His foresight and predicting of the future is something that often happens with the Targaryens, and the clairvoyance is known as dragon dreaming. Now, one of the main reasons Aegon's dream wasn't known in Game of Thrones is that he didn't tell anyone except those next in line to the throne, and thus, when they had this civil war, it just didn't get passed along. Now, Aegon was born to Aerion Targaryen and Lady Valenna Velaryon, and he had an older sister Visenya and a younger sister Rhaenys. The Targaryens loved incest more than Rick and Morty, and as was tradition, he was betrothed to his sister. However, he did end up marrying both, and he was said to have married Visenya out of duty, whilst Rhaenys was out of love. Now, whilst Aegon had this dream to take over Westeros in order to ensure that the realms of man would survive, there were other matters that he had to tend to first. As we mentioned previously, Aegon was born in the Century of Blood. After the Doom of Valyria, there ended up being a power vacuum, with many vying for control in the land of Essos. Aegon was approached by the cities of Pentos and Tyrosh to form an alliance and defeat Volantis. He ended up agreeing to this, and this started off his conquest. We saw each of these cities in the original Game of Thrones show, when Daenerys in her exile ended up freeing them before heading out into Westeros. His story somewhat mirrors that of Aegon's, and like they say, it's like poetry they rhyme. Now, with this alliance struck with Pentos and Tyrosh, he flew to Lys on his dragon to burn the fleet of Volantis. Aegon did this by riding Balerion, who was also known as the Black Dread. We've seen this dragon's skull which sits under the Red Keep, and it's also the dragon that King Viserys rode. Now, Aegon's sister Visenya and Rhaenys would also ride their own dragons, Vhagar and Meraxes. Balerion was a ridiculously large dragon, and he could cover entire towns in shadows, showing that size matters. His sisters Visenya and Rhaenys would ride Vhagar and Meraxes, and we've already seen that Vhagar, it's the guy your girl tells you not to worry about. Vhagar has of course shown up in House of the Dragon, and it's not the only thing from Aegon's time that carries over. Visenya's sword Dark Sister is also used by Daemon, and Aegon II of course carries his name, crown, and also his sword too. Time is really a flat circle, isn't it? Now, after the clash with Volantis, Aegon was now free to focus his attentions on Westeros, and he set about taking over and uniting all the kingdoms. Aegon was thought by some to have visited Westeros before his invasion, with there being reports that he passed through Arbor, the Citadel, and also Lannisport. Before the invasion began, Aegon would commission the Painted Table, and we've seen this popping up throughout all of the TV shows. This was used by both Stannis and Daenerys, and it was a focal point in House of the Dragons episode 10. Rhaenyra also held her Black Council around this, and she planned out how best to defeat the villainous Greens. The table in the book is described as being 50 feet long and 20 feet wide, with it giving a full view of Westeros so that strategies can be formulated. Underneath it, one can use candles and fires to light up the map and give an idea of how the realm will look on fire, because it's all gonna burn. Now, prior to his conquest, the rulers of Westeros were the king in the north, Torrent Stark, Ronald Arryn, king of the Mountain and Vale, Harrenhal, king of the Isles and the Rivers, Loren the First Lannister, King of the Rock, Mern Gardener, King of the Reach, which is what I'm calling myself, Argilac Durrandon, the Storm King, also known as Argilac the Arrogant, and Myra Martell, Princess of Dawn. Harren butchered all those names, but moving on. Now, Harren had just completed work on the mighty Harrenhal, which would appear in House of the Dragon, being burned with some very strong people inside. This was known as the tallest castle in Westeros, and its ruler refused to bend the knee to Aegon. He said that he was safe within its walls, as stone didn't burn, but my man played a game of around and find out, and he lost very badly. It said that Balerion burned the wooden hay that lay within it, and then focused on the stone. This is said to have gone so hot that it actually turned to molten, and yeah, it wasn't exactly a good day at Harrenhal. We'll get into this more in a bit, but Harrenhal was also the location of the declaration of Viserys as Jaehaerys I's heir. Harren had been looking to expand when Argilac sought an alliance with Aegon, but he was mugged off when Aegon asked to marry his daughter, only for Aegon to offer his friend Orys Baratheon instead. Furiously, Argilac refused, as he considered it an insult, as Orys was possibly a bastard. He ended up cutting off the hands of the envoy who sent the message, and he sent one to Aegon saying, "These are the only hands you will receive." As we know, killing a messenger isn't something you should do, and it's something that Aemon's going to find out firsthand. Now either way, this led to Aegon declaring war on Westeros, and he sent a raven to each of the kings. This proclaimed him to be the only king in Westeros, and it stipulated that those that bent the knee would keep their lands and titles. As we know from Game of Thrones, there's constantly a disputed line of succession, and I feel like everyone is constantly declaring they're the rightful ruler, like Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy. Now Aegon began his campaign by landing on Westeros with his sisters and a small army of 1,600 men. Aegon ended up constructing the Aegon Fort and what's known as Aegon's Hill. This area over time became known as King's Landing, as people flocked there once Aegon became the king. Now the Aegon Fort would be replaced by the mighty Red Keep, which still stands to this day, well in Westeros, with construction beginning in 35 AC. Also joining Aegon's side were the houses Celtigar, Massey, and lastly Valerian. There appears to be some inspiration taken from the real-life Duke of Normandy, who was more famously known as William the Conqueror. Visenya gave him his first crown, and Rhaenys named him Aegon, first of his name, King of all Westeros and Shield of his people. Now we touched on this before, and arguably one of the biggest and most famous events of battles of the Conquest was the burning of Harrenhal. We talked about this curse in other videos, but it's one of the most savage things Aegon did, and its effect has been seen regularly across the TV shows. Harren's house, House Hall, fought against Aegon's forces, but they couldn't match the dragons, and thus they hid in the castle. As we talked about earlier, he mocked Aegon saying that stone doesn't burn, and Aegon replied with one of the most metal lines ever. He watched him ran off about how he was safe in his house, and Aegon said, "When the sun sets, your line shall end." Aegon rode Balerion and burnt the castle to ash, killing Harren and his sons with their swords being sent to the Aegon Fort. Every time soldiers or house leaders were defeated, their swords were collected and sent off, and I'm sure you can guess what they got made into. Now with Harrenhal being destroyed, Aegon looked to the Stormlands and decided they needed conquering too. This led him directly into a battle with the forces of Argilac, who Aegon previously insulted prior to the invasion. This battle was known as the Last Storm, and Orys Baratheon and Queen Rhaenys defeated Argilac. The Queen used her dragon to take out his men, and Orys defeated him in single combat. Orys, as you guessed it, would form House Baratheon, and he took Argilac's daughter, forming the Mr. Steal Your Daughter House, you bastard. Now from here, Aegon would go on to attempt to take the rest of Westeros, which I'm calling Resteros. Anyway, the kings of Highgarden and the Rock, Mern Gardener and Lorne Lannister, formed an alliance. It was an unprecedented one, and their army was gigantic and formidable. However, Aegon's side had dragons, so no matter what, it still evened the playing field. The battle was known as the Field of Fire, and almost 4,000 men were killed or burned during this attack. The Gardener line ended up pretty much extinct after this, with a fight killing the king and all his sons. It ended up with Loren bending the knee, and another name you might recognise being given lordship over Hightower. Harlan Tyrell was rewarded after yielding the castle, with the titles of Lord of Highgarden, Lord Paramount of the Manda, and Warden of the South being given. The North was next, as Torrent Stark was marching to face the Targaryens, but something happened which was very, very unlike the Northmen that we've come to know in the show and books. Stark would go on to yield to Aegon, and he became the Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North. However, with this also came a little less of a savoury name, and throughout the legends he's been known as the King Who Knelt. After watching the end of Game of Thrones and the revelation of Aegon's dream in House of the Dragon, this meaning has some fresh light shone on it. Viserys said how there must be a Targaryen on the Iron Throne and mentioned the Song of Ice and Fire. The ice could be the frozen wastelands the White Walkers come from, but it could also be the Starks. The Starks were honor-bound and dutiful men, so what would cause a stubborn house like this to yield to a foreign invader? Perhaps Torrhen yielded because the details of the dream and the knowledge that there's something evil beyond the wall. The peace was made as Torrhen had realised that both the burning of Harrenhal and the Field of Fire had showed that dragons ain't nothing to f with. Now the Vale was next, which was won by Visenya simply flying Vhagar to meet the young King Ronald Arryn. He asked for a ride on the back, and he was so impressed that he ended up kneeling, so yeah, nice one there. Now this was despite his mother Regent trying to secure an alliance by the way of marriage, making Ronald the heir, which was obviously refused. The only place not to be conquered was the Dawn, and it wouldn't be until 3 AC that Aegon would try and go back in order to complete the set. He was eyeing it up like a shiny Charizard that was just out of reach like a gummy de Milo. Dawn proved to be the hardest place to conquer, and the hand of King Orys ended up being captured. Things went from bad to worse as Rhaenys fell in 10 AC after the dragon Meraxes was shot down from the sky. It was a long and brutal war, and it also appeared to have no end. Aegon was almost killed twice, and this is why the King's Guard was formed, so that he had his royal protectors as the best fighters in the land. In 13 AC, the bloodshed ended, and Naemon Martell, the Prince of Dawn, sent the skull of Meraxes to Aegon. This also brought with it a letter that accepted the contents, leading to finally the conquest of the Seven Kingdoms being carried out. Now the world at this point was pretty much laid out how it is in the show, and it's extremely similar to what we've seen in the series. As the king, ironically, Aegon attempted to be a peaceful ruler, and he established the King's Peace where conflict can only be decided by the Iron Throne. That throne was forged using the swords of his defeated enemies, and he rewarded Orys Baratheon's service by making him Hand of the King. He also became a father in 7 AC to Aenys, and would later father Maegor the Cruel, well Maegor at the time, with Visenya in about 11 AC. There were rumours that she was actually barren, and a lot of people wondered whether Aenys was illegitimate. The Iron Islands were secured in 2 AC, and once the kingdoms united, the realm enjoyed what was known as the Dragon's Peace. Aegon attempted to assimilate into Westerosi culture, and he built a sept on Visenya Hill and also one on Rhaenys'. Other major constructions included the giant wall of King's Landing as well as the Red Keep because Aegon thought wasn't fit for a king. Aegon died in 37 AC on Dragonstone at the age of 64, and he was cremated similar to Viserys' wife Aemma, which we saw in House of the Dragon. He was succeeded by Aenys I and Maegor the Cruel, which is a whole video in itself. But there you have it. The life and times of Aegon the Conqueror, the legendary figure who did the impossible and united the Seven Kingdoms. Obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on the character, so make sure you drop a comment below and let me know. We are running a competition right now and giving away 3 copies of Top Gun Maverick on the 15th of November, and all you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the character. We pick the comments at random on the 15th, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, make sure you check out one of our House of the Dragon breakdowns, which will be linked on screen right now. Having a lot of fun talking about the show, especially now it's over. Not a mad rush to get things out at 2 AM in the morning, so yeah, having fun with it, and I hope you are too. Hopefully I'll see you over on one of those videos, but if not, enjoy the rest of your week. Take care, peace.